Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're here for another gospel, another Sunday gospel. What a nice thing. We're going to speak about this topic here. Where is God's world? We hear Jesus talking about a kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven. There's something else beyond this, and at times it's not clear. The apostles themselves, they bring a bunch of questions. They are not really understanding in the beginning until Jesus talks so much about it that they kind of grasp the sense. But it's very complicated to grasp. Depends a lot on the belief system. Depends on how open we are to understand his words. Just to make things clear here, we know who this guy is, I assume, right?
Mm-hmm.
This fellow here is Pontius Pilate, okay? He's a key figure in when Jesus brings the famous "My kingdom is not of this world," which is the chapter 2 in the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going to base our talk on. We're going to try to understand, to grasp the meaning of that passage in history. It has a historical value, obviously, but we're more interested in extracting from that historical value the spiritual content. So Jesus mentions this kingdom of God several times. I listed 3 of these times so we can start talking about it. One of them is here: the kingdom of God is within you. And you see, 2,000 years ago, still today, but 2,000 years ago, people, only less than 5% of the population know how to read and write. So you can see the level of culture and knowledge that these people have. And somebody says this, and the first thing is, yeah, I'm not going to listen to you because that doesn't relate to me. I don't know what you're saying. It's completely out of my head. So it was very difficult for the population to understand something like this. Here's a second passage along the same lines. Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Meaning, the kingdom of God belongs to people such as the children.
Mm-hmm.
You see, now, this is 2,000 years ago. Spiritism is not, the third revelation is not out yet. So children here are children, physical body children, not children as we Spiritists know that has a spiritual history, incarnated a bunch of times. That's not what he means here, okay? So he's talking about little children. What does a little children mean? It means no lies. It means I'm open to suggestions. It means I want to learn and grow. That's what it is. And this is what Jesus is saying. The kingdom of God requires all of these things that kids have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and finally the third passage is, my kingdom is not of this world, which is an entire chapter in the gospel, chapter 2, that Kardec, goes deep in details trying to explain that. So my kingdom is not of this world. There are 3 major things that right off the bat we can extract from. First of all, let's say, for example, that I'm invited to a party. Okay, some of you invite me to a party, and we go there. We're having some sandwiches and just talking and something like that. And then suddenly, for some reason, totally beyond our control, the party starts to get too wild. Okay, things get out of control. And I'm there, and I'm a Spiritist, and I have my belief system, and I have my own kingdom, my personal kingdom, which is my belief system. And then things start to go wild, and people come to me and start offering drinks and this and that. My personal position, I'm not going to say this to anyone in the party, but the way we handle this is, this thing doesn't belong to me. I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. My kingdom is not here. My kingdom is not of this world here that I'm living right now, temporarily. When the party's over, I'll go back to my kingdom. So the party might take another hour, maybe another 2 hours. So I'll just live with that for now, but I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to align with this because my kingdom is not of this world. This is the first thing that we grasp. So when Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world, he means, I don't belong to this world where you have violence all over the place, where people are crucified, 500 people a day, not a year, a day, okay? People are just fighting all the time, envy is all over the place. This is not my world. I'm here temporarily to do something else. That's the first meaning of my kingdom is not of this world when he says it. Number two, not being out of this world, it can also mean there are other worlds that are populated, and there are spirits living in other worlds and going through their evaluation process in other physical worlds. One of the things he says later on is, there are many dwellings in my Father's house, which is completely in alignment with this previous saying. So it can also be understood as worlds in terms of physical opportunities to develop the spirits, other physical places. And also he kind of gives us a signal that there's future life. My kingdom is not of this world, meaning I already passed this. It's like us in a party, right? Yeah, there was a time maybe many lives ago where I used to drink and I used to do the same wild things that is happening right now in this party, but I'm past beyond that. So I'm living a future life. I'm living at a different level altogether, different spiritual level, different mental state. So he brings these three things in one saying, just like that. It's very profound. That's why if you try to understand this within another belief system, it is very complicated. Very complicated. They have a very hard time grasping the meaning of all of this. Now, what did Kardec do? He said, well, this is so profound that I'm going to have to divide this in three parts. I cannot study everything in one shot. It's too much. It's going to complicate things. So let's divide things in place. So he created 3 chapters to address all of this, and they are in line, chapter 2, 3, and 4. Each one of them, you see the mind of this man, how smart this guy is. So he divided exactly in the same sequence, so he could give us a better understanding of what it means. Okay, so when does this phrase come in place? Okay, it comes in place when Jesus is with Pontius Pilate, and he's facing his judgment. That's strange, right? Jesus being judged. It's so strange for us, but we're talking about the historical event. So within the society, they had some rules. They had their own belief system and their own political system, and he was taken to a judgment. That's when he comes out with this phrase. Now, we need to understand what was taking place at the time and why he had to say that. So let's go back in history a little bit so things make sense. Let's try to enter the context at the time. So we have an emperor, Tiberius. Under him, the empire was divided in several smaller, just like today, we have a president and we have several smaller geographical areas called states. So it's easier to do administration. They had something about the same. So there was an emperor, and this emperor had several smaller areas that he would grant political power to certain people to do administration. One of them was Herod the Great, and he was responsible for what we know as Judea. Okay, that includes Jerusalem, Nazareth, and Palestine. That's today's Palestine, roughly speaking. So Herod dies on 4 BC. When he dies, his entire territory is divided among his 4 sons. Okay, and you can see by the color here who gets what. Maybe you can decide between this and this, but the white area here, that goes to Archelaus, and the other areas go to his other sons. Okay, now the problem is this area here, this white area here, goes to Archelaus, and he, at a certain point after he gains power, he decides that he was going to kill 3,000 Jews just because he didn't like them. And he gives orders to kill 3,000 Jews, and 3,000 Jews are killed. And obviously there's tremendous revolt, and he's taken off power. So when he leaves the power, the Roman Empire, Tiberius, decides that we're not going to have a middleman for the whole area. We're just going to give, direct administration to smaller people. And one of them then is going to do administration for this area here, and this guy is Pontius Pilate. So Pontius Pilate comes to be the prefect, okay, or administrator, a civil administrator of this area here, Judea. Okay. Now, under him, you see, he's the civil administrator for the Roman Empire. Within this geographical territory, the Jews are living, and they have their own structure, their own political system, their own religious system, and that was all controlled by an entity called the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin had the top guy at the Sanhedrin was called the high priest, and that was Caiaphas. Okay, so Caiaphas, you see, he still responds to the Roman power, but within the Jewish community, he is at the highest level. Under him, there's another high priest that doesn't have the same level of power, but it's just below him. It's called Annas. So this is the structure of things. Now, these people here in the Sanhedrin don't like Jesus at all, because he's trying to bring a new belief system. He's saying, you're doing these things, you are expressing power in a way that it shouldn't be. You say A and you do B, and you lie, and all these things, and you're corrupt, and everything that we know from history. So they're trying to find a method, trying to find a legal way. You see, they wanted to stay within the legality of its times. So they want to find a legal way to accuse Jesus of being some wrongdoing, some crime, something that they can put their hands on it and send him to jail, possibly to death. Okay? All right, so this is what's taking place. This is what's going on. So he's taken to the lowest power, which is this Annas, as we saw in the schematics here. So Annas can't find anything wrong with him. I mean, what he finds wrong is that this guy's bugging me because he knows who I am. You know, I'm not perfect, and he's telling me to right in my face, and I don't like it. But legally, I don't find a reason to bring anything against him. So he goes to the next one up, okay, which is Caiaphas, and he says, we need to find something. And just so that you know, right, this guy is father-in-law of this guy. So they are also family related. So you can find, you can see how complicated it gets for Jesus. So this guy starts to poke Jesus so he can say something, and he doesn't say anything. He remains silent. And at one point, at a certain point, Jesus mentions something that they think it's blasphemy, and that something is the possibility of him being a Messiah. At least that was the way he or them interpreted. Jesus didn't say, I am the Messiah, sent by God. They made a case out of his words and took that into consideration and say, wait, we found a legal way to go after him. So now we can hand him over to the next one in power. The next one in power is Pontius Pilate. So they go to Pilate and say, this guy is a criminal, whatever the word is at the time, it just doesn't matter. For them, they want him dead. So he's taken to Pilate, and Pilate looks at them and says, I don't have anything to do with this. This is a Jewish thing. And these guys are all Jewish. I don't have anything to do. I'm a Roman civil administrator here. You're putting me in a difficult situation, so I don't know what to do. I'm going to go to the next one up. Now, the next one up, if you remember the schematics, would be the Roman emperor, okay, Tiberius. But Pontius Pilate said, it's too much. I don't have the guts. I don't have the power to go straight in. Plus, we're going to have to to send this guy over to Rome. It's going to take a month. It can't be done. But I have an idea. And this is his Pilate thinking. I have an idea. I am the ruler of Judea. But this guy here, this Nazarene, comes from Nazareth. Nazareth is a different distriction. What if I send him to the guy who's in charge of Nazareth? That's what he does. You see, he doesn't want the thing in his hand. He's like trying to escape, trying to slip out of his responsibility. So he sends Jesus over to the one in power that controls Nazareth. And this is Herod Antipas. He looks at Jesus and says, I have even less to do with the case. You know, I don't know what to do. I don't see anything wrong with this guy. And they send him back to Pontius Pilate. And Pilate now has to make a decision. He can't escape anymore. He can't slip anymore. And then Jesus is brought into his palace, and then they have the very famous dialogue. So they're face by face, and the dialogue takes place. And the dialogue starts when Pilate asks him, Jesus, are you the king of Jews? It's a straight question. It's a yes or no question, right? And Jesus responds, my kingdom is not of this world. It's the famous phrase. And again, if my kingdom were of this world, I would find somebody to get me off the hook. I would find somebody that would pay somebody, bribe somebody else, and this thing here, we wouldn't have this conversation. Because that's your world. Bribing here and there, adjusting things and talking to people, and so I wouldn't be here, but my kingdom is not of this world. So this conversation is taking place, it's going to continue. That's basically what he's saying to Pilate. And Pilate goes like, well, I don't know what to do now. And he asks a second question. Because he wants a straight yes or no answer. Are you a king, yes or no? Right? And then he asks again, then you are a king. And Jesus said, you are saying that. I didn't say I am. You see, it's you're coming out with this thing. I didn't say I am a king. I was born to come and bring you the truth. But I didn't say I'm a king. And those who are aligned with the truth will hear my voice. You see, those interested in hearing the truth will open their hearts for a new belief system. Those who are not will not open their hearts. They're not going to be interested in any new belief system. They want to do what they do today. Okay, they want to stay within the old belief system. Now, you see, Pilate insists in the king word. Are you a king? He's kind of obsessed with the word. And who is this man? Why is he asking that? Okay, we know from the Gospels, from the 4 Gospels, who Pilate is. Matthew portrays Pilate in a way that the washing the hands, I don't have anything to do with this, shows that he doesn't want the responsibility. Mm-hmm. But it's more profound than that. That's us. We are Pilate every day, at times in our lives. So we do that too. Mark shows a reluctant Pilate that doesn't really want to execute because deep down inside he doesn't see how. He doesn't see anything wrong. Luke displays more or less the same picture. There's nothing wrong against this guy. How can I send him over to a cross? How can I send him or hand him over to jail or something? And John puts in this way, Pilate finds no guilt in Jesus and asks the Jews to release him. So Pilate is really trying to do something for Jesus. He's trying to work it out in a way that it's going to be a nice outcome for him personally and for Jesus. More for him because he doesn't want the responsibility. Okay, now that's who Pilate is. Now, who is Jesus? Okay. We could see that Jesus is just a man that was born in Nazareth, but we know he was a lot more than that. Earth was created, life on Earth was created about 4.5 billion years ago. Not life on Earth. Earth itself, the planet, was ready for life. And about 4.5 billion years ago, and life started about 3.5 billion years ago. When this all started here, 4.5 billion years ago, we had somebody in charge of this thing. We had a governor. And this is Jesus, the governor of the planet, and also a member of angelical communities between solar systems. So, you see, 4.5 billion years ago, he was already a little bit ahead of us. So, can you imagine Jesus with this, spiritual history, sitting right there in front of Pilate, knowing that he was way, 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 way behind, and having to take that. And as a perfect spirit, a very angelical spirit, he's not going to interfere in the course of things. He could, but that wasn't what he was here for. If he would interfere, he would be doing the bribing and the whole thing that everybody else was doing. That was exactly what he was trying not to show. Mm-hmm. Now, Pilate is obsessed about the word king. Why? Now, think about this. For Pilate, 2,000 years ago, what is a king? Okay, for example, if you ask me today, what is a president for you? I'm going to say, it's somebody in power that controls a lot of people, has several people under him, and so and so. That would be my personal view of a president. What is, in these days, a personal view? What is a king? Okay, What does the image of a king bring? Power and authority. All right, Palace, luxury, women, several wives, right? Banquets, servants, all of these things, wealth, a lot of money, a lot of gold. This is the figure of a king. So Pilate is asking Jesus, are you all of these things? And Jesus is like, no, but I'm not saying, right? So you see the level, the difficult of the difficulty of the dialogue. They are in different levels. So Pilate wants to know where his wealth is, where his wives are, where his palace is, what kind of power he has. And Jesus is saying, I'm no king of this world. It's something different that you're not grasping. Okay, so what does it mean at the end, these being a king of a different world? So now we have two worlds, the world that Jesus is trying to show us and the world that we live in, or they were living in at the time, and there are differences. From Jesus' perspective, there are several dwellings in my Father's house. In the human perspective, there's only one, only us, and we are the center of the universe. That's the thinking of the time. That's us, only us here. We are the center of the universe. Jesus' world considers love above all things. Ours is not really. I have my own interests, and then if there's time, if there's maybe an opportunity, yeah, I'll think about this thing about God. But it's not my priority. For Jesus, loving your enemies, it's something obvious. Love your enemies. For us, it's no. It's an eye for an eye. You're wrong. You're telling me the wrong thing. It's an eye for an eye. Right? From his perspective, he wants to show in practice, and he came to practice love, charity, forgiveness, justice. And we are in a totally different world, practicing violence, misery, wars, prostitution today, drugs and drinking and different things. From his perspective, he's trying to teach us, be perfect. And we are saying, shut up, I'm already perfect. You see, that's the position. I'm already perfect. I give the rules, I tell you what to do, I tell people what to do, and the universe should comply to my way of thinking. Jesus is trying to show a divine justice, but there was another justice in this world. There still is, which is a human justice, which is not the same thing. Human justice is based on revenge, not really justice. It's a different thing. And Jesus is bringing, or trying to bring to these people, to us, a spiritual life, the concept of a spiritual life. And we are like, yeah, but we want the iPod, we want the iPad, we want the car, we want the house, we want several cars, we want several houses. And things don't match. So we are still very attached to all of this in today's world. You know, an eye for an eye, it really never went away. It got better, but it really never went away because it's in here. It's embedded in here, in human justice, right? So it's a completely different new belief system that he's trying to bring. So when we analyze the situation with the dialogue and him being judged, here's the first thing that we see. Pilate washed his hands. That's a physical act, but he didn't wash his conscience. That's the spiritual side of it. He took the responsibility of him with him, that he didn't do what he was supposed to do. You see, the thing about responsibility has to do with intention. Okay, when a lion eats a deer, okay, it's not really a crime in the sense that we know it. Okay, because there is no intention. It's just survival. Now, if I go hunting and I kill a deer with a firearm, there's a different intention, so there's a lot more responsibility to this thing. You see, for Pilate, he had the responsibility very high because he knew that what he was doing was wrong. It's not that he did it without knowing and got to know later. No, he knew Jesus wasn't supposed to be even there, and he took things in his hands. It is so that he tried to work things around. He offered an option for the population, said, I'll give you somebody else, and you'll get Jesus back, and we'll kill somebody else. It's still not right, because he's still proposing killing. So you see, his responsibility is very high. Now, this passage here of us, I mean the population at the time, choosing Barabbas over Jesus, we do this all the time in our lives. We do this all the time. What is this in Miami in 2013? It is, I keep making wrong choices knowingly. That's what this means. So we are doing this every day in our lives. And every time we make a wrong choice knowingly, we are doing the same thing. We are just repeating history. Now, with time, after the crucifixion, Jesus' message starts to be more organized, if you will. The church is born, and what happens is that the church deviates completely from the original idea. And it gets into all of the things that the material world has. It wants power, it wants wealth, it wants killing, crusades, inquisition. It is doing the very same thing that they were doing when Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. So we could say, if you want to really extend the power, we could say that the church, as we know it, is not really Jesus' world. It's different. It is the same thing that the Jews were doing 2,000 years ago. And what we are doing here, we Spiritists are doing here, is trying to understand this and get away from that. Get into His world, step into a different world, a different belief system that does not include anything like this. Okay, no drinking, no violence, no wars, no prostitution, nothing like this. When I'm saying, okay, in the party that I went to, when I'm saying to myself, my kingdom is not of this world, that's what I'm doing. I'm practicing Spiritism. I'm putting it in action. I understood the message of the Christ, and I'm living it. Okay, I can fall. Yeah, people can come to me, offer me 2 shots of drinks, and okay, I'll take it this time. We can fall. We do fall. We're on choice. I'm choosing Barabbas over Jesus. Okay, so our kingdom is in reality not a physical place like they were expecting. You see, they were expecting a Messiah that had political power, nothing to do with spiritual, political power that would free up the Jewish communities out of the Roman power, establish their own kingdom, physical kingdom with a palace and bribing and all of those things. That's what they were expecting. And then comes Jesus and proposes, I am the one. And they go like, no, you're not the one, because you're not doing, where are your army? Where's your army? Where are the weapons that you bring? And He doesn't bring anything like that. So the kingdom is our state of mind. There's a very interesting phrase, which is actually a book, a very famous book from many, many, many years ago. It's called Wherever You Go, There You Are. That's exactly what it is. Wherever I go, I take my kingdom with me. So if I'm unhappy here because we got black chairs, and I get transferred to Japan, and I go there to have black chairs, I'm going to be as unhappy as, because it's part of my belief system. It doesn't have anything to do with the color of the chair. It has to do with my perception of the color of the chair. Okay? And other things, for example, if I have to look for this kingdom, which is inside of me, to work on it, it doesn't make sense to work on other people's kingdom. You see, every time I place my actions on somebody else, I'm not working for me. I'm processing somebody else's ID, basically. So, for example, one thing is I need to buy a pair of shoes to be able to walk. That's fine. The other thing is I need to buy the pair of shoes which has this brand, and it has to be this particular model, and it's a special edition because my neighbor has the same. That's different. I'm processing somebody else's idea. I'm not processing my idea. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for somebody else. So I'm not doing anything for my own growth, for my own evolution. I'm just processing somebody else's idea. So I can't practice this virtues. I can't outsource virtues. I have to pull them from inside. I spoke about this several times here already. If you think about the sun, okay, what time is at night in the sun? Never. It's never night in the sun. And why is that? Because the sun is the source of all light. So when am I going to be tolerant? When I am the source of all tolerance. When am I going to be in peace? It's not when two guys in ties sit down and sign a piece of paper in the Middle East. No. I'm going to be in peace when I am the source of all peace. See, if I outsource peace, I don't depend on me, I depend on them. That's called victimization. Now I'm a victim because you didn't sign the agreement. You're still fighting over the Middle East. You didn't sign it, so I'm unhappy. I'm not in peace. That's not why I'm not in peace. Okay? When am I going to be patient? When I am the source of all patience. And it goes like that, okay? We need to be the source. These things have to be part of our belief system, part of our kingdom. So instead of adjusting to this world, we're going to adjust to our world, which is what Jesus always taught. Very interesting story is this. One young scientist was trying to figure out, and he thought he was on the right tracks. And he said, well, I'm really on the right tracks. He was trying to figure out how to fix the world because it was full of wars and corruption and prostitution and everything wrong in his mind. So he said, well, I'm a very bright person, I'm very intelligent, maybe I can find a technical way to make things happen, maybe invent something that fixes the world. And he's working on it constantly. And he doesn't have time for his family, obviously, because he's all obsessed with this thing, and he's working 24 hours a day on his project. Then his son one day walks in and runs in and said, Daddy, you don't have time for me, give me 5 minutes, I want to be with you for maybe an hour or so. And he goes, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I want to keep going on my project. I need to find a fix for the world. So he has an idea. He said, I got an idea. My son is 7 or 8 years old. I'm going to give him a puzzle so he can reassemble. It's going to take him hours and hours and hours. He's not going to figure out. Within that time frame, I'm going to go back on my project, and I'm not going to be disturbed. So he takes out of a magazine a page that has the world map like that, and he cuts in tiny, tiny, tiny little pieces. And he gives all the tiny little pieces to the boy. And he says, you got to reassemble this thing. Just use Scotch tape and reassemble all the places and bring it back to me. And the boy leaves and goes, okay, I'm going to do it. And he goes like, wow, at least I got 2 or 3 days here that I can work on my project. He's not going to bug me again. An hour later, the boy comes up and the whole thing is assembled and right. And he goes like, wow, how did you do this? And the boy said, that was very easy, Dad. And he said, no, it can't be very easy. I wouldn't be able to do this myself in days, maybe a month, and you did it in 1 hour, and you're 7 years old. How did you do that? And he said, well, didn't you ask me to fix the world? And he said, yeah. Didn't I fix the world? Yeah, but how did you do it? Well, when he took the page out of the magazine, I noticed that on the other side was a picture of a man. And it was a lot easier to fix the man first. When I fixed the man by working on the other side, I fixed the world automatically. And that's a very interesting story. So that's how we're going to fix the world, looking for the kingdom of God, working on it. And that's going to make things change. When we look out there to 300 billion galaxies and 200 billion suns in each galaxy, we want to fix everything. Well, science, this is science. They discovered that in order for me to fix everything here or to do anything with this magnitude, I need to understand how it works. And they found out that we're going to understand, and we